certainly a couple calls. I thought I was probably a little bit too aggressive, not patient enough. Tried to throw the ball down the field, and we didn't hit them. They weren't timely calls. And then at the end of the half, those are situations that are, I thought we did a good job. We drove the ball down the field and were able to get 3 points. We'd love to score touchdowns in that situation, but the other two were a little bit more disappointing just because we had some momentum. We were driving the football and we went backwards, and it was a combination of things. Some calls that I didn't like, on my end that I need to be better. Like I said, I thought I was probably a little bit too aggressive in a couple of those situations, and we didn't connect on them, or the coverage wasn't what we were looking for. So I take responsibility for that. And then the penalties, you can't have that. So there's no doubt we settled for too many field goals Saturday, and we really, we've had opportunities in the first four ball games to score more points than what we have. And we got to capitalize on those opportunities. So we didn't do a good enough job of that on Saturday, despite a lot of positives. We don't want to be kicking as many field goals as we did.
Nick, I wanted to, Beaver Stadium can be pretty darn loud. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about audibles, but first I had a question for you. On October 18th, 2008, you played a game at Beaver Stadium, and
Sure
you were
did.
3 for 9 passing for 5 yards. I was wanting to know how you passed for 5 yards in a game before we get to the audible.
Yeah, that's a good question, Tom. I don't remember that day at all. I do remember my dad's the youngest of 12. My mom's one of five. There was a big family wedding that was going on that day. Obviously, I wasn't attending, and so it was a nationally televised game. I came in off the bench. I didn't start that game, and I got sacked for a safety, I think, by Jared Odrick. So my whole family was able to enjoy that while one of my cousins was getting married. So it's a wonderful environment, and Penn State's fans and the atmosphere that they create. Um, the history of the program, the quality of football that program has had for a long, long time. It's a testament to all the players and coaches and people of that community. So, yeah, tough place to play, but an opportunity for our guys that I know that they're looking forward to.
In regards to audibles and that noise and such, do you guys work a lot of extra on that this week in regards to getting that stuff in? And then I asked Mike earlier too, does he have the opportunity to audible himself, or does that always just come from you guys?
There's always a balance there between the play caller and the quarterback as far as changing plays. Mike has the freedom in certain situations to change the play when he sees something. The communication is always something that's very important in those types of environments. Making sure that everyone's on the same page, everybody clearly gets the communication, whatever level it is, whether it's from the sideline or between players, between linemen, whatever it may be. And I think that's what those environments they challenge you with. That is with your communication. We'll certainly pump crowd noise in. It'll be nothing like what they'll experience on Saturday. It doesn't matter how loud Mitch gets the speakers. The one thing that's been a benefit, at least for this group, is we played in the opener, which was a packed house and a very loud environment. Um, but certainly we expect it to be rocking on Saturday night, and that'll be a challenge. Our kids have to do a good job of communicating clearly, confidently, so that we're all on the same page, so we can give ourselves the best opportunity to move the ball and score points. But that certainly is a challenge, always is. We do our best to try to prepare the kids. We have some veteran guys that have played in different environments, but we certainly expect Saturday to be very loud.
Coach Allen talked about how he said he sits in on all the quarterback meetings, kind of, I think he said on Sundays, and he said that in particular after Cincinnati, kind of the emphasis of, or sort of the sturdiness, I guess, of his confidence in Mike came in part from listening to Mike talk through what he saw of his own performances, what he was thinking when he made certain decisions, certain mistakes, things like that, and I guess Coach Allen feeling like that was stuff that was correctable, I suppose, as much as anything else. Just when you went through that process with him after Iowa, certainly after Cincinnati, were there kind of little pins you could put in the board to say, this actually maybe it looks really bad on film, but there's progress here, there's steps here, I guess, that he's taking that are going to lead to something a little bit more like the performance we saw Saturday?
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the things that you try to do as a coach is to listen. Why did you do that? What was your thought process in that moment? What led you to that decision? we try to grade the decision, not necessarily the result. You know, when you play quarterback, you're making decisions quickly, and you want them to be confident in that. And sometimes quarterbacks make good decisions, but the result doesn't work out the way you want it to. Other times they make bad decisions and they throw for touchdowns. That happens across the country. And so, you know, we try to grade the decision. In order to find that out, you got to ask the player, you know, why did you do that? What were you thinking there? What did you see? And that communication is ongoing on every play in practice, you know, when you're watching film throughout the game. And as long as the recognition of a poor mistake or a poor decision, you know, is very clear, you know, I shouldn't have done that, or that wasn't a good decision, or this is what I saw, but now looking at it, I recognize that wasn't a good choice. You know, that's the type of feedback you're looking for. Most of the time, the quarterbacks know when it was a bad decision. You know, it's not, you know, obviously in the moment, they weren't thinking that it was going to turn out the way that it did. But so I think those conversations have been great with Mike. Um, you know, and we just try to work through that. You know, and there was a lot of good decisions Saturday, and there were a few that we didn't like either. You know, collectively that you know we recognize that we have to be better in those areas as well. So that goes each and every game. You're just hoping that the poor decisions don't you know lead to turnovers and you know prevent you from winning. Because there's no quarterback that plays perfect. There's always a couple plays where you don't like the decision that they were, you know, that they made. So I think those conversations are open. I think we try to do our best job to listen to the player. They give you a really good insight into what they saw. And if they're seeing something that they shouldn't, if they're looking at things that they shouldn't, if their eye discipline's not where you want it to be, if they're not focusing on the right defender or offensive player or whatever their key may be, you got to make sure you teach that and coach that better. So I think the open communication is important, not just for the quarterback, but for all positions.
Nick, last week you talked about getting Michael a lot more comfortable and in a rhythm, and he looked very much like that this week. A big leap. One thing missing from the offensive yet is still the downfield threat. It does not seem to be close to getting there yet, which is going to be needed as you get into conference play. Where are you feeling as confidence-wise on making that come to reality?
I think there were some opportunities in the game Saturday where we did try to push the ball down the field, and the ball just ended up not getting there. You know, the defense played on top of the cover of the routes. You know, Peyton Hendershot had a nice intermediate route. You know, we have deep options on those types of plays. So sometimes the coverages, you know, they're playing off of you. You know, they're not allowing you to run behind them. When there are opportunities to do that, we got to hit on them. There's no doubt. We had explosive plays in the game, but I think what you're referring to is the 40, 50, 60 yard or those types of things where the ball is thrown vertically down the field and we've come up with it. You know, I think we missed Cam Buckley on a vertical on our sideline. You know, that's going to happen. You got to keep throwing them. It's been a point of emphasis. I've seen progress in practice, and certainly those change, you know, the outcomes of games when you're able to connect on those. So we'll continue to chop at it, continue to work at it, and try to get better. It's certainly an area that we put emphasis on and recognize we need to improve at.
Obviously, found out this morning that the DJ is going to be out for the year. What one? How tough is it to see that for him, considering what he's put in, and who are sort of the next men up? How does the wide receiver room sort of change, and how you guys, not how you operate necessarily, but
Sure.
who are sort of the next guys that you need to step up in his absence?
Yeah, I hate it for DJ. You know, he's just been an awesome kid and a great addition to our team. You know, I just hate it for him. You know, and he was starting to really come into his own, really contribute, and be the type of player that we know he's capable of becoming. And so for that to happen to him, you know, our heart breaks for him. We're here to support him and love him. And he's got a phenomenal attitude. And, you know, we look for a full recovery for him. As far as replacing his production or his role, I think it's a group effort. Not just at the wideout position. You know, I think other positions, tight ends, running backs, quarterbacks, line, everyone's got to just elevate their play, you know, and find a way to make up for some of the production that, you know, we anticipated DJ to provide. And so certainly in that room, there's got to be guys that will have to learn multiple positions. You know, I give Ty Freifogel a ton of credit. You know, he basically played a position Saturday night that he didn't play all week in practice. You know, when DJ was unavailable, went right in and played, you know, our slot receiver and did phenomenal. And so Other guys had to step up. Jacoby Hewitt had some big catches. I think Cam Buckley's right on the brink of, breaking out and having some really big plays. So, all those guys are going to have to elevate their play and step up and play a bigger role, but also the other position groups as well. So it's got to be a group effort. And I think everybody's excited about that while we're, heartbroken for DJ and hate it for him.
Penn State, I don't think, has given up more than 20 points in a game. What stands out about that defense to you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, they're very aggressive, they're very fast and athletic and powerful, and so they have a good combination of everything. They have big, strong players up front. They have second and third level players that can run and cover and hit. And I think their defensive staff does a phenomenal job, and they're very aggressive. They're very multiple. They present a lot of challenges, so that's why they're very good each and every year. Certainly the talent of player that, they've recruited is excellent, but I think their coaches do an exceptional job as well. So it'll be a tremendous challenge for us in a very loud, environment. And so we're going to have to be on it. We're going to have to execute at a high level. And I think our guys are looking forward to that.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the pass rush aspect of it. I mean, just how does that alter what you guys do, and what kind of impetus is that put on the offensive line? Because, they traditionally, with the pressure they traditionally bring.
It's a big challenge. There's no doubt. You reference about throwing the ball down the field. The longer the routes take to develop, the longer the quarterback has to hold onto the ball. And so there's always a fine balance, of that. Our guys up front recognize the challenge, that they'll face on Saturday, but that's collective as well. Quarterbacks making the right checks, the running backs blocking the right people, wideouts getting open and creating separation at the right time so the quarterback can play with anticipation, knowing where guys are going to be. So, it always starts up front. This game is always a line of scrimmage game, and so the ability to block people, both in the run game and in the pass game, will be critical. The ability to create explosive plays. In order to do that, you got to give the quarterback some time to be able to do that, to be able to set his feet and throw the ball down the field. And so you can't just have one type of protection scheme. You can't just have one launch point. You have to do multiple things to try to keep them off balance. And you got to run the ball effectively and throw the ball efficiently so you're not in 3rd and 12 the whole night. They would love that. So it's a challenge. They do a great job up front, a lot of movement, a lot of pressure. Really good players, so they do a great job, and they have our full attention. There's no doubt as far as the quality of players that they have and the great job that their staff does.
Yeah, Coach, curious if you had a sense going into the game if Mike would have so many attempts, or if that was more game flow, and then I guess secondarily, if he's as good as he was on Saturday, is this a team that has the personnel to be more kind of pass to set up the run?
Yeah, we had 90-plus snaps. That really hasn't been our formula. We did our best to try to, score on 14 and 15-play drives. If we could just score, on 4 or 6-play drives, that would be a lot, better. But we certainly like to, use all the calls on the call sheet to get there. So it just kind of happened that way. We had 90-plus snaps in the game. We had 38 minutes of time of possession. We had 35 first downs. It's not normal. So I think usually if you look at the distribution, we're probably in the 40s throwing the ball and somewhere in the 30s running the ball. That usually gets us in the mid-70s. But just because of the nature of the game on Saturday, I thought Mike was throwing it well and seeing it well. The guys were getting open. There were opportunities to throw the ball. There's a lot of people in the box, so sometimes that makes it more challenging to run it. So I wouldn't say that we went into the game thinking we were going to throw it 50-plus times. I also didn't know we'd have 90-plus snaps. It just kind of worked out that way. So, traditionally here we've always been, a little bit more lean towards throwing the ball than running it. And sometimes the game dictates that, just how they're playing you, what they're allowing you to do. This league is very strong and stout against the run, always has been. There's a commitment to it defensively with the coaches that you go against. And so you got to be able to do both, but also not be stubborn and just try to run the ball when, they got more people in there than you do. So we like to be balanced, but we also, recognize what we're going against and try to give our guys the best chance to be successful.
Coach, I apologize for just the bluntness of this question, but in your first 2 matchups against top 10 teams, fingers were pointed pretty much out the offense for the lack of execution in both of those. I guess when you're getting ready for your third one here, what do you say to fans and critics alike who still don't believe in this offense's ability to execute and win games for this team?
Yeah, I mean, we have to prove it. It really doesn't matter what we say. You know, we get opportunity to go out there and we have to prove it. You know, I thought in the first game, you know, there was no, I mean, we didn't do anything well enough. I thought in the game against Cincinnati, we did a lot of things well. We just had some errors that cost us, you know, and I have no objection, argument. I mean, take full ownership and responsibility for that. And looking forward to the opportunity to get back on the grass Saturday night against our third top 10 team in the first 5 games. So, you know, it's a tremendous challenge, and we got to do our part. There's no doubt about it.
Forgive me, this is a horribly niche question, but you were talking earlier about Mike's sort of freedom to check at the line when he thinks it's necessary. You guys had some productive running plays in sort of longer down and distance situations. I think a couple, maybe third and long runs, including a draw against kind of a heavy blitz. I mean, I don't know if you're willing to share. Basically, was that a play call? Was that something Mike saw? But between sort of what you're seeing and what he's seeing, is that something that basically you don't mind going to even in a long situation?
It just depends on the situation, you know, without getting into too much detail, Zach, on that. You know, it just depends on, yeah. So it just depends on the situation, you know, the types of coverages and fronts that you're getting and what you feel gives you the best chance to try to convert and get a first down. So, yeah, I'd rather not get into too much detail on that. Okay, thanks, guys.